Oh, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm going to be your host today on Archery Talk 101. What you're learning today is why your shots are further to the right or left as you shoot for further distance. The problem shows itself when you shoot 20 yards and you're grouping in the center, but as you start shooting longer distance, you notice your groups are now shooting to the right or to the left. Uh, and then as you get further and further, they seem to move further and further to the right or left. The right-handed shooters would be going to the right, left-handed shooters would be going to the left. So the main problem here is the bow and or the sight are not plumb with each other. So if your bow is held vertical and your sight's not in the same plane, that can cause that problem. So a couple of things can be going on. It could be you're holding the bow tilting to one side, or you're called canting the bow. So a lot of times right-handers have a tendency to lean a little bit forward. As you're shooting left-handed, you can lean a little bit forward, which tilts that bow off to the side. So we'll go with an example of right-handed shooter. If you're shooting off to the right, you're normally tilting the bow just a little bit. And so that's kind of what you're going to look at. The other thing that can cause arrows to start shooting to the right or left would be if your sight wasn't parallel to the bow, meaning you're holding the bow perfectly straight up and down and your sight is off just a little bit. Most of your new sights are really good at being set up so they're nice and straight. And your risers are normally they're right in there with it, so you bolt them up. You're normally not going to have that problem. That could be it. The other problem you might have is when you're shooting level at all your distances, your group are just fine, but now you're shooting downhill or uphill, and now all of a sudden your groups are moving to the right or left. But that's a different problem in the sight adjustment. It could be your form changes. There's several things that go on, but I'll cover a couple of the things that we can look at a little bit later. It also helps to have a sight on your bow. That way, when you come to full draw, take a look at your level to ensure that you're holding the bow level. If you're not holding the bow level, it could be your grip could be off. You could be going to the wrong part of your hand. It could be off as you come up and you move your hand a little bit and it goes off a little bit. So what you want to do on that is you want to let down, change your grip, make sure you have the good grip on it, and then draw up again and draw your bow and check. And if you keep doing that until you can come up and you're sitting level with your bow each time you come up. So now you know what it feels like when your bow is level. One of the problems you're going into is if you have to shoot standing on a hill and the hill slopes, that's where your sight needs to have a level on it, so you can ensure that you are shooting some longer distances. You're going to be shooting off to the side. Now on the older sights, you could adjust both the elevation and the windage. Each pin was independently adjustable, so you move it in and out, up and down. So if you have a natural cant to your bow, you can adjust your pins to compensate for that. So your pins wouldn't be straight up and down; they'd actually be off a little bit an angle to compensate for the lean that you naturally would have. Now, if your new sights, most of those you adjust the whole sight for windage for your left and right, but you're going to adjust each pin for elevation. So you really can't adjust for the canting in that. Otherwise, you're going into other things. Now, to see if you're holding your bow level, of course, put a level on your bow. That helps there. Now, one way to determine if you're canting your bow is to shoot at 20 yards with your 20-yard pin. Then take your next pin, say it's a 30-yard pin, and then shoot the same target, the same spot with your 30-yard pin, and 40 and 50, and move up the line on there. Now, what you should see is your arrows should be directly above each other in a vertical line straight up. If they're not, if they're going further to the right, that means either you're canting the bow, which is most likely going to be the problem. You're canting the bow just a little bit, a little bit of lean, your grip is off a little bit. Now, the other problem, not as likely though, is that your sight is not level with your bow. There are ways to check the sight to ensure that it's in line with your bow. And to do this, you'll need a level on your sight, a couple levels to set your bow level and plumb. You need one for your arrow and one for your string. Make sure that's all level, so your arrow's level, your string is plumb. Check it in both directions, from the back as well as the side. Make sure it's level there. Now you know your bow is level. Now then look at your sight, and your sight should be level. That bubble should be right in the center of the lines. If it's not, you need to adjust that sight until it is. Once you've got all that done, and now your bow should be set. So now you're not shooting off unless it's you actually canting your bow. That's when you check it. Now, to adjust for shooting up and downhill, that ultimate adjustment is as you tilt your bow down or up, it still stays in the same plane. So I'm going to describe a process for this. It's not normally equipment that most people are going to have because it takes a little bit more equipment, and sometimes the jigs are a little bit more expensive. So what you're going to do this, you're going to have a jig to hold your bow that allows you to tilt the bow forward and backwards. Now, the next thing you do is you're going to adjust the level on the arrow to be level, adjust the string so it's plumb in both directions. Now you're going to look at the level on your bow's sight, and it should be level. If it's not, you'll have to make adjustments like we talked about a little bit earlier until it is. Now, if the bow's sight are both level, you'll now need to tilt your bow down and watch the level. The bubble should stay in the middle. If it doesn't, that means that third axis is off a little bit, and you'll have to either adjust it. Now, some of your sights will have that third axis adjustment. You can just rotate it a little bit. If it doesn't, you're going to have to add a shim between the sight and the riser. This is not something that most people are going to have the equipment to do. It does take a special jig that allows you to tilt forward and back like that. So that's kind of the problems you can look at to solve if you're shooting off to the right or the left. Now, if you'd like to watch other videos or instructional videos, get archery tips and advice, you might look at it joining the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group. I'll put a link in the description below to make it easier to get there. So once again, this is Roy Canterbury. I've been your host today on Archery Talk 101.